Hello, this is Jamie Mitchell, and we are back with another episode of Libertarian Uncensored podcast, going over all the posts on Libertarian Uncensored subreddit. Let's get right into it. So first we have Supreme Court says Trump is partly shielded from prosecution from NewYorkTimes.com by Lemon Limelight, and I said, the president has always been above the law, this was just codifying it. Personally, I don't think anyone should be above the law, but inherently, those in positions of power are inherently above the law, I would say, because no one watches the Watchmen, and that's something that increasingly U.S. politics is increasingly obvious when it comes to U.S. politics, and that's my thoughts there. Then we have disinformation expert Barbara McQuaid celebrates the silencing of Steve Bannon. A cross post from the Decline into Censorship subreddit, and I posted that, and I said, that's a tweet from the Infobal Maiden on Twitter, who tweeted, "Censorship's true. Barbara McQuaid says, quiet part out loud. We'll hear more from Steve Bannon, but then he's going to be locked up for 4 months, where he'll be unable to do his War Room podcast. That'll be the greatest service to democracy we see from this." And I said, it's Bannon and Alex Jones today, and he dissented all tomorrow. And that's how I feel about that issue. Then we have, we have to vote blue no matter who, guy, exclamation by Ragnar OKXG, and that's a meme, from SpongeBob, and it's Man Ray holds his audio to Patrick. You say you vote for Biden, but even if you don't like him, and Patrick says he has to stop 2025. Man Ray says even though his rights are being taken away under him now, and Patrick says that's the Supreme Court and Republicans blocking Congress, and Man Ray says so we can't or won't do anything to stop Project 2025. Why does he deserve my vote? And then Patrick says, stop Project 2025. And I said, Project 2025 is just them fear-mongering since January 6th has gotten stale. And that's my thought on that issue. It's just a list of Republican wet dreams. A progressive organization could make a list of their wet dreams as well, but then no one would really care about that. It's just narrative fear-mongering. If Trump wins, I'm gonna be against him and his authoritarianism, but Project 2025, that's just kind of a pipe dream list, I would say. Not realistic. I don't think it has any realistic chance of happening, but you never know. So that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have guys don't vote because Biden is old and evil from Knee Concussions, and that's a crossword from the 196 subreddit. And it's a meme of they're from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, of Charlie with Doll's conspiracy theory board, and it says, MF's explaining why I shouldn't vote, but like in a leftist progressive way. And then the guy adds, who else is old and evil, or the man who's going to win if you don't vote for Biden? And I said, make the case for electing Biden without mentioning Trump. And my thoughts on that are, ultimately, I think even most people planning on voting for him at this point realize that Biden is nothing but really a corpse at this point. He's really not all there, as the debate clearly showed. And yeah, I think if you want to vote for him, fine, but don't gaslight me into thinking he's this master statesman when the only reason you're voting for him is because he's not Donald Trump. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have enough of supporting Republicans and hating Democrats from Winter Trabex, and that's a self-post that they made, and they said, whatever flaws you think might think Democrats have, which are numerous if one's being honest, they're the only party who gives libertarianism a chance. It doesn't have any chance to the Republican Party at present. They have their goals, and they will impose them by any means as possible, by force if necessary. The Republican Party has been busy in the last decade stripping away as many civil rights as they can get their hands on, slow walking their way into a dictatorship. Their goal is to turn America into North Korea, except for Christianity as their chosen ideology instead of communism. The only thing they will matter in a Republican-like country is loyalty to one's leaders. Those who want to see liberty-minded candidates elected vote Democrat, even if the Democrat isn't themselves a liberty person. They are the only ones allowing for the possibility of their own defeat for the electoral process, regardless of how difficult or exclusionary it is. The Republican Party has always been trying to curtail voting rights as much as possible, leaving people with no choice except to vote for the party's chosen person. Many Republicans are flat-out idiots. They don't know anything about economics or how to manage a country, let alone a convenience store. They largely follow whatever conservatives say they should do, regardless of that prior statements and or actions. It's a party without principle that has no regard for their country or the citizens they are meant to represent. So here's my message for you. Either stop supporting conservative ideology or just admit that you don't want to see liberty in your lifetime. Be honest with what you want and go for it. If you want to keep what amount of freedom we still have left, vote Democrat. And I said in response, this subreddit has the ultimate problem. I was referring to the post title, enough swing Republicans and hating Democrats. I personally think that neither party is that libertarian, and each will lead us down the path of tyranny in its own regard, I would say, and that's my fault on that issue. The Republicans may be more anti-democracy, but that the Democrats really just use democracy as their own hegemony, as a means to institute their own hegemony. So it really doesn't. I really don't think it matters too much. And so it really doesn't matter. I would say they'll just take either way. We're still going down the path of tyranny. And it's important that we resist that tyranny as much as possible. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have a liberal plan of action by MBD Max 82, and they said liberal is used in the traditional meaning, not progressive. One of the great failures of the modern liberal movement is failure to promote a meaningful action plan the average American can understand or see as personally beneficial and achievable. Here are a few points I think modern liberal movement could achieve and are consistent with the principles of the movement. We're drawing the political map. The current politic fundamentally does not represent the people. To fix this, we're drawing state lines and implementing new electoral system ranked choice voting would lead less to disparity. Monetary liberty from the central bank. Many large corporations already print de facto money. We need to formalize privately printed money and audit the Fed, as well as take away fiscal sovereignty from the state. Replace the police with the people's militia, self-explanatory, no state enforcers, tax reform, a land tax could reduce taxes and increase revenue while being easier to manage. Clearly this is just an elevator pitch, but how many of you would support such policies? And I said in response, liberal is a lost word. Most Americans think of it in the modern leftist sense, not the classical liberal sense. And no matter how hard I think you try, I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have AOC intends on filing articles of impeachment for SCOTUS. My title X screenshot from Dr. 07, and that's a tweet from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The Supreme Court has been consumed by a corruption crisis beyond its control. Today's ruling represents an assault on American democracy. It is up to Congress to defend our nation from this authoritarian catcher. I intend on filing articles of impeachment upon our return. And I said in response, one of the thousands of moments in the past decade that sounds earth-shattering but really amounts to nothing. Nothing ever happens. It's mostly just social media hype. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have the president can now assassinate you officially from Ninja Lover, and that's from thenation.com. And I can't respond since they blocked me recently. But ultimately, I like this tweet I found from I think his name's Jeremy Todd, who I think that's a good perspective, libertarian perspective on the ruling. With the Supreme Court ruling, POTUS could start a war with American citizens, killing 600,000 plus, put an entire race in internment camps, drop nukes on civilians, invade a sovereign country, drones like American citizens, and face zero consequences. Think about it. And yeah, I agree with that very much. There's never really been any rules regarding the presidency. And people have been willing to let all that slide. So ultimately, I think this is just more continuing with the status quo. Ultimately, people are gonna justify letting the state do whatever it wants as long as it's their side doing it, and the media doesn't tell them to do anything to protest it. And that's my fault on that issue. It's important to stand against authoritarianism and Trump's authoritarianism, but Trump is only the tip of the iceberg, I would say, when it comes to stuff like that. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And then we have let's talk about Trump's SCOTUS and the immunity decision from both the column on YouTube by hosted by Anarcho Federation. They added, according to SCOTUS, the executive can interpret his monarchy accurately from 1776 calling for republicanism to 2024 calling for monarchism. And I just goes to show you that ultimately the person in power will never be held accountable by the system that holds them in power. As it's up to the people to hold the people in power accountable, not the state. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Donald Trump says fake elector scheme was official act from Supreme Court endorses dictatorship from Newsweek.com by CH4Locks for crosswords from the news is a stupid subreddit. And I said, I'm more concerned about the Iraq war and Obama drone striking U.S. citizens without due process being quote-unquote official acts. It's like that tweet from Jeremy Todd I just shared. The president is able to get away with pretty much anything, and there's no interest in holding him accountable. Outside of Trump, Trump's really the only exception when it comes to people interested in holding him accountable. And even then, I think they'll eventually move on to someone else, and it'll be like George W. Bush in that regard, where they won't be interested in holding him accountable anymore. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Found This at the Thrift Store from Joe Overdose, 1996. And that's a copy of the book they found from the Tuttle Twins and the Hyperinflation Disaster from Connor Boyack. And they added, I just thought this line was really funny and couldn't help but grab it for myself. And I said, cool, most people are before this book, though. And I linked to an Amazon listing for Communism for Kids. And yeah, that's my fault. That's some book by some person named Benny Amziak. Ultimately, I would prefer Tuttle Twins, but I feel like a lot of people on Reddit would probably be more into Communism for Kids. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Lack of Control, Sort of the Point from Patrick Hedger on X, and I posted that, and that was him quote tweeting a New York Times headline, First Amendment is out of control, and I said, traditional media outlets like the New York Times deserve no attention whatsoever, in my opinion. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Papers, Please from Far and Chimney, that's cross-sourced from the Defeat Project 2025 subreddit, and it's apparently a sign in Idaho, in the library, pursuant to Idaho Code 181514. That became effective July 1st, 2024. To proceed beyond this point, you must be 18 years or older. If you're under 30, please be prepared to show photo ID or have an unrestricted library card. Please have your card ready to need to be scanned or be accompanied by your parent legal guardian who must sign an affidavit every time you are coming to the library. And yeah, I definitely don't think that's good. But that just goes to show you that Republicans aren't that into liberty either. Ultimately, I don't think kids should be looking at pornographic books. With that being said, it should be the parent's decision, not that of the state. And that's my thought on that issue. Then we have Oklahoma is now required to teach students about the Bible and Ten Commandments in all public schools by Ragnar OKXG. And I definitely agree that's not libertarian. I think, personally, any state-required curriculum shouldn't be considered libertarian. Each class should be able to teach whatever the parents want or whatever the students want or whatever the teacher wants, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have this Independence Day. Remember, the state can break open the sealed urn of your dead daughter's ashes and test it for drugs from newschannel20.com by Chad Buffin. And yeah, that just goes to show you that the state can get away with whatever it feels like, as long as the people ultimately won't hold them account for it, as long as it's not a general narrative too. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Trump amplifies call to jail top elected officials, invokes military tribunals, and that's an archive link from New York Times, and that's posted by Dr. 07. And I didn't comment on that one, but yeah, I definitely don't think that's very good. And yeah, I think that should be that Trump's definitely authoritarian in that regard, and that's my thoughts on that issue. And we have the most chilling line, Supreme Court's Trump immunity ruling from NewRepublic.com by Ninja Lover, and they said in the ruling the court stated that testimony of private records of the president or his advisors probing such conduct may not be admitted as evidence of the trial, referring to anything a president that does an official act. And yeah, I definitely don't think that's good either. Then we have Roses Are Red, John Roberts Lies, The SCOTUS Makes Me Want to Gouge Out My Eyes, Loyalty to the Party of Your Country from CH Relax, and that's cross-sourced from the New Jersey Politics subreddit. And it's linked to a video from a confirmation hearing from John Roberts 2005. No one is above the law under our system, and that includes the president. The president is fully bound by the law. And I think that just goes to show you that, the law is ultimately not going to hold those in power accountable. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have poll. What do you think is more likely, U.S. Civil War II or World War III? And I posted that. And I said, I said I voted World War III. I think neither are as likely as social media makes them out they seem to be, but I think international relations right now are worse than domestic relations. If it does break out, hopefully people remember about mutually assured destruction when it comes to the use of nuclear weapons. False. So currently we have 3 votes for U.S. Civil War II, 7 votes for World War III, 6 votes for abstain. I also added, as for U.S. Civil War II, I think you see a lot of hype for it on social media, but I just don't think it would hold up IRL. When stuff like the OKC bombing is happening multiple times every day, I think most people wouldn't like it, which is why they prefer to be passive-aggressive on social media instead. And that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Donald Trump is going to win the election and democracy would be just fine. Original title opinion piece from BangorDailyNews.com by Dr. 07. And that's a piece from Maine's Congressman and the House Representative Jared Golden. And Yeah, you know, I think it's good to see. I personally think it's good to see some Democrats aren't fear mongering about Donald Trump. It seems like that's almost all of them these days. But yeah, I definitely don't think Trump is. I think he's authoritarian, not libertarian, and yeah, that's my fault on that issue. But I definitely do think people tend to overly fear monger about him, and that's my faults there. Then we have Clarence Thomas torn over case where both sides offer compelling scuba trips for where both sides offer compelling scuba trips from the Onion.com by Ninja Lover, and that's just another Clarence Thomas bad, Supreme Court bad headline kind of. And yeah, for a side that claims to be, all for black people, the left sure complains about Clarence Thomas a lot, but that's just my fault there. It really just depends what the narrative is. They say, oh, we love black people, but then they don't like Clarence Thomas, and oh, we love autistic people, and then they don't like Elon Musk. It's just whatever the narrative is. It doesn't matter. Oh, identity politics can only get you so far. They'll turn on you when the narrative says to. Then we have Biden says he nearly fell asleep during debate after world travel. He then spent 6 days at Camp David preparing for the June 27th debate by Ragnar OKXG from ChannelNewsAsia.com across from the Late Stage Capitalism subreddit. And yeah, that definitely isn't good. Biden is clearly not all there and is clearly pretty much a walking corpse at this point. As pretty much anyone can tell, even the majority of people voting for him. Then we have why we should celebrate on what we should celebrate on Independence Day from John Stossel on YouTube, and I posted that, and I said there is little practical reason to celebrate Independence Day anymore, in my opinion. We live in the antithesis to what the founders set out to create, and that's my thoughts on that issue. Then we have Colorado LP to replace RFK Jr. on ballot instead of Oliver from Crossroads from Libertarian Party USA subreddit by Tom 13, and yeah, I personally think they should go for Chase Oliver instead, but ultimately, I don't think RFK Jr. is the worst choice, especially when Biden and Trump are out there as well. Either way, I don't think either of them are going to come close to winning, and that's my thoughts on that issue. And then, see if we have anything new. We do. We have conservative heritage leader, Second American Revolution will be bloodless if the left allows it to be. And that's from thehill.com by Keone9. And, yeah, I definitely don't think we're close to the Second American Revolution anytime soon. But yeah, hopefully it would be bloodless because I don't want to go. War is definitely going to be hell, and that's why I think we could use another generation like the founders who fight for freedom and liberty at great expense to themselves. They were willing to twist everything to fight for freedom and liberty. But sadly, I don't think that's the generation we live in. We live in the generation where it's only people just yell on social media rather than actually care about doing anything IRL. And that's my thoughts on that issue. And I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.